January 7th, 2011, from the stylish high-tech underground studios of Ribbit Media in snow-covered Warwick, Rhode Island, this is News Undies. For January 7th, 2011, this is News Undies, all the news that shouldn't be news. First, a programming update. News Undies has changed its format and schedule. It is now a monthly magazine-style show rather than the previous weekly format. There are 12 shows planned this year, and all of them are scheduled for release on the first Friday of each month. And now, on with the show. I'm Paul Torville with these headlines. Snow cripples transportation system, strands millions at airports and train stations, or worse yet, in awkward family situations. Decline in home prices not helped by collapsing dollar. Economists consider more debt and less taxes. Oil executives propose alternative to expensive oil. More expensive oil. Spurred by WikiLeaks, U.S. State Department struggles to reshape honesty and decency to fit better with its normal policies of deception and underhandedness. Yogi Bear movie opens. Oops, America may never recover. New study shows economists to be no smarter than the average lichen. For 2011, we're introducing some new segments. First up is a little bit we're calling The Numbers. Here's Chicken hatching our own little countdown.
Ah, you had to go there, didn't you? All right, let's get started. 53, the median age of registered Chevrolet Corvette owners in the United States. 9.47, the number of, quote, nuns, end quote, for every Mormon in America. Same ratio for nuns versus Jews. 7.3 million. Dollars raised by Christine O'Donnell's failed Senate campaign, more than 20,000 of which she is alleged to have used for personal expenses. 73. Approximate weight in pounds of 28-year-old model Isabella Caro at the time of her death. 20 billion. Dollars paid as Wall Street bonuses for 2009. Experts expect growth for 2010. Good for them, bastards.
When we have a month like we just had, we invite Ollie Oliphant to help us remember with a segment we like to call Look Who's Dead.
Here is a not especially nostalgic look back at famous people who died over the course of the last month. Actor Leslie Nielsen, football legend Dandy Don Meredith, adult film star John Leslie, lawyer and political wife Elizabeth Edwards, son of financial Frankenstein Mark Madoff, ambassador Richard Holbrook, writer-director Blake Edwards, musician Captain Beefheart, actor Steve Landsberg, R&B legend Tina Marie, economist Alfred Kahn, singer Agatha Von Trapp, actor Pete Postlethwaite, and actress Anne Francis. Quite.
Thanks, Ollie. We'll be right back with stories in detail.
I'm an atheist.
I'm an atheist.
I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist. I'm an atheist.
I'm an atheist.
I'm an atheist.
On the international front, 3 stories grabbed our attention. First, former U.S. Vice President and current pulseless cyborg Dick Cheney is to be the target of a Nigerian arrest warrant for his alleged responsibility for an alleged $180 million bribe paid by Halliburton to Nigerian officials to secure a lucrative LNG contract during Cheney's tenure as the CEO of the company. An attorney for Cheney fired back with the legalese equivalent of, "Nuh-uh, so there." Open and shut. I'm sure that's the last we'll hear of that. Second, soldiers from Nicaragua wandered into Costa Rica, took down an already waving Costa Rican flag, which should have been the first indication that while possibly not wrong, they may not have been exactly right either, and raised their own flag. After the fact, the soldiers blamed Google Maps for the error. Clearly, someone hasn't read the terms of service. Thirdly, former president of Israel, Moshe Katsav, has been convicted of rape. He will spend time in prison. It's sad when you have to look to a country as messed up as Israel for guidance on how to handle criminals who also happen to be politicians. In case you hadn't seen enough terror warnings and rat on your neighbor's cat recommendations, Homeland Security Secretary Janet Napolitano will be joining you in hotel lobbies, malls, public transit facilities, and in the checkout line at Walmart. Yes, that's right. Janet will be there distracting you while you try to decide between reading about Angelina's latest African adoption or Heidi Montag's latest cosmetic procedure. Thankfully, this is not a campaign involving static posters. No, video screens. You figure the government's got to be buying the screens at a deep discount, right? I mean, the government always buys everything at a deep discount. And I'm sure they're getting the space to put the screens up for free. I mean, it's not like every square inch of merchandisable space in a Walmart isn't, accounted for and somehow billed to someone. All this so Janet Napolitano can speak directly to you and say something that would be at least as effective on a simple black and white poster. Money, well spent. Answers in Genesis, the stupefyingly out-of-touch with reality young earth creationist Christian apologetics ministry, based in Hebron, Kentucky, and founded by Ken Ham, the mangy Aussie evangelist featured prominently in Bill Maher's 2008 docu-comedy Religulous, is at it again. What are they at? Well, you may recall Answers in Genesis opened its "It would be funny if it wasn't such a sad commentary on the state of the American intellect" Creation Museum, which depicts, among other things, dinosaurs and people as cooperative cohabitors, and the biblically accounted Noachian deluge. In line with that last bit, Answers in Genesis is now raising funds to build what it is calling a one-of-a-kind historically themed attraction, centered on a full-size, all-wood ark. Ark? Yes, ark. As in Noah, in the hills of northern Kentucky. If you go to AnswersInGenesis.org, you can follow the links to the Ark Encounter and see a video of the governor of Kentucky praising this project as a great for-profit venture that will bring jobs and tourists to Kentucky. And no, it's not unconstitutional. Not at all. Nope. State funds and tax breaks. Yep, not unconstitutional because it's not religious. It's a theme park. For profit. Governor. Kentucky. Jackass. The pastor of First Baptist Church of Rio Linda in, as you might have guessed, Rio Linda, California, has been arrested on multiple counts of sexual child molestation. Tom Gene Daniels, and you know that makes him guilty, the authorities only use the middle name when they're guilty, is being held on $6 million bail, up from the original $1 million, because he's considered a flight risk. That's good to know. I guess you can't really blame it on the Catholic injunction for chastity among the clergy, because Baptist clergy can get married and have sex until the cows come home. I guess God just makes some people to be deceitful, predatory monsters, and we have to just accept that as part of his plan. No? While the papacy of Benedict XVI has been a seemingly inexhaustible font of gaffes, nonsensical statements, and unsound reasoning, the seemingly perfect confluence of general stupidity, ill-conceived policy moves, and profoundly unfathomable reasoning has eluded His Holiness until now. In a single move, which threatens to unseat the entire presidency of George W. Bush as the worst thing Western civilization has done since the end of World War II, Pope Benedict has reinterpreted the Vatican's position on condom use to allow gay prostitutes to use condoms as prophylaxis against transmission of HIV. The logic behind this, if it can so be called, works like this. Since gay men cannot have sex for procreation, the birth control function of condoms does not come into the picture at all. It's okay for them to use condoms since that does not interfere with reproduction. That's all fine, as long as you don't look at anything else. That seems to be a step in the right direction. Maybe. But if one looks at the Catechism of the Catholic Church, which is the real Catholic rulebook, one finds that unless you are in a ratified and consummated marriage with a person of the opposite sex, you are to be chaste. Not chaste, but chaste. Any and all sexual activity is off limits. Now, prostitution, homosexuality, and fornication, that is, unmarried sex, are all grave sins. At that point, the allowance of the use of condoms is trivial and, frankly, meaningless. If you're going to hell for any one of the three grave sins, and there's no more hellish hell, then screw it. Your level of punishment is already saturated. Go full boat, don't you think? But there's a deeper, more profound and worrying stupidity at work here. Try to follow the thinking. By permitting the use of condoms to contain the transmission of HIV among gay prostitutes, the Vatican is admitting that HIV, a creation of God, is undesirable, and only gay prostitutes, i.e., thrice irredeemable sinners, are permitted to benefit from possible freedom from this scourge. Good Catholics are required to risk HIV infection. This is how God thanks them for their devotion and righteous living. How many more have to suffer and die under the yoke of this profoundly ridiculous belief system? Perhaps more importantly, does this mean that Catholic priests can now use condoms when they rape altar boys? Would that be a small victory?
Hey, Sean.
Hey, John.
Look, I know everyone's been ragging on you because you can't eat salt.
Yeah, man. Ass.
Seven years ago, the Mars exploration rover Spirit plopped down on the surface of Mars by way of a combination of an ablative heat shield, parachutes, retro-rockets, and a raspberry-like array of airbags. Over 5¼ years, Spirit boogied along the surface of the red planet, photographing, drilling, and tasting rocks, identifying mineral formations, finding evidence for past liquid water on the surface, taking atmospheric measurements, and so on. In May of 2009, Spirit became stuck in soft sand. The last contact with Spirit was in March of 2010. Meanwhile, Spirit's twin, Opportunity, continues to operate and is currently investigating Santa Maria Crater. These rovers were intended to last for 90 days, and in many respects their tenacity is a testament to the quality of engineering and manufacture that we are capable of. And yet, not since the cancellation of the Apollo Moon program, whose last mission flew in December of 1972, has the U.S. space program had any kind of grand plan, a goal that required the kind of creativity and ingenuity, and whose challenge was met with the same kind of urgency that landing men on the moon in under 10 years required. Maybe it's the lack of charismatic leadership, or the shortage of real competitors, but America as a nation has lost its way in space. This is evidenced by the fact that we have, with international cooperation, lofted a giant orbiting outpost, which, after April 1st of this year, we will be totally dependent on our former sworn enemies and now tenuous friends, the Russians, to gain access to and return from. The vigorous pursuit of a viable, cost-effective replacement for the space shuttle was not forthcoming from the U.S. government, and now it looks like the private sector may beat NASA to lofting a human-rated orbital spacecraft. SpaceX has already flown and orbited its Dragon spacecraft, which is intended to initially provide cargo services to the ISS, but may also be upgraded to human rating within a couple years. NASA, which in decades past has sold us visions of lunar colonies by the 1980s and probable manned landings on Mars by the turn of the century, has become a timid shadow of its former self. NASA, like the rest of the federal government, is by, for, and of the people. It is a reflection of the self-centered, superficial, apathetic, anti-intellectual, defiantly incurious electorate, and it is shameful. To put this in perspective, while exact numbers are hard to come by, credible estimates put the total cost of the space shuttle program at around $175 billion, and took the lives of 14 astronauts over the course of 133 flights. That's over 40 years, counting the R&D time. The wars started by George W. Bush are estimated to have taken the lives of nearly 6,000 U.S. military members and somewhere between 160,000 and 1 million Iraqis and Afghanis, and cost the American taxpayers over $1 trillion so far. That doesn't even touch the ongoing medical expenses for the over 40,000 wounded and disabled veterans coming home from these wars. The government has thrown another $1 trillion or so at corporate raiders to entice them to do business in a slightly more ethical and sustainable way. Obviously, the benefit to the taxpayers is enormous. Our space program is a reflection of us, and it is retarded. It trumpets its past triumphs, wallows in its past failures, and is totally unmotivated to push forward and do something great again. Low Earth orbit is a dawdle. China and India have pulled it off, two countries which, while we were landing on the moon, had no appreciable industrial base. Meanwhile, we've been sitting on our thumbs here in what has been lauded as the wealthiest nation on Earth, whining about how expensive and risky human spaceflight is. Grow a ball, America.
Hi, I'm Paul Torville, the guy behind, in front of, and wearing on his head, NewsUndies. If you enjoy NewsUndies, you can help support NewsUndies by going to the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave and buying some kitsch. There's groovy shirts, awesome dummy head mugs. It only hurts when I Care Bears. So fuzzy. Groovy oval NewsUndies stickers just like this. And, yes it's true, NewsUndies boxer shorts. Aw yeah! Can be found on the Ursus Pacificus Kitsch Cave.
Captain Owen Honors, who in 2006 and 2007 was executive officer aboard the aircraft carrier USS Enterprise, and is now the commanding officer of that same ship, is featured in a series of videos which were played on the ship's closed-circuit TV system on deployment. The stated intent of the videos was to focus attention on issues like port visits, traffic safety, keeping the ship clean and operational, and so on, and to do so in a humorous way. Many find the humor to be not at all funny, and in fact offensive. Here are Pig and Sheep with their thoughts.
If showing women in the shower and making offensive remarks about gays and liberals helps us win the war on terror, then that much the better. I've just about had it with the liberal media and their constant focus on the little problems and failure to see the big victories. Amen. Big victories? Is he insane? Would he mind telling me what he thinks a big victory was? But I digress. The incident has the flavor of the tailhook incident so many years ago. Serving in the military is not just about physical strength and endurance, it's about mental, emotional, and moral strength and endurance. The limited amount of footage I've seen was clearly in poor taste. Generally, and for the ironically named Honors, to be in uniform representing his command, the Navy, and the country in such a light is at least short-sighted and poorly thought out. There's something to be said about getting out of the kitchen if you can't stand the heat, and military service is certainly not for everyone. But it appears that what Captain Honors did was unnecessary and certainly conduct unbecoming an officer.
That's what Pig and Sheep think. What are your thoughts? Email them to ovcomments@newsundies.com. Why are we still in Afghanistan? Seems to me there are only three paths open, and only one leads to actual victory. Path 1, the current path. This is a pointless battle of wills, which will slowly bleed America dry. Failure is assured, it's just a matter of time. Path 2, pull out. Afghanistan is already a humanitarian disaster, and has been for decades. Nobody is going to fix that with a gun. Afghanistan needs to be in a 12-step program, which means it needs to want the help, which it clearly doesn't. If it helps you to cope, don't call it a failure. Call it a learning opportunity. Path 3, victory by scorched earth. 1 square mile of Afghanistan indiscriminately paved for every insurgent shot fired. No questions asked, not pretty, not popular. Pull out all the ground troops, reporters, doctors, petroleum speculators, and diplomats. Leave 1 ambassador with a satellite phone in Kabul, and bomb from 50,000 feet. Give the people of Afghanistan 72 hours. Cities, farmlands, outback, the whole shooting match. 72 hours to pull these Al-Qaeda and Taliban douchebags out of the woodwork and put their heads on pikes for us to inspect, or 72 hours to get the hell out of the way. If the people of Afghanistan don't care enough to find and code red these Taliban and Al-Qaeda bastards themselves, then why should we? I'm all for hugs and rainbows, but this is frickin' ridiculous. Personally, I'm for option 2. Leave Afghanistan to the Afghan people. Really. Completely. Not a nickel of aid, not a penny of trade. Leave it to live or die on its own. From what I understand, the tribal regions of Afghanistan have been tribal for all of human memory, and will be for the foreseeable future. Their beliefs, allegiances, and suspicions are as old as their claims to the land, and are just as unlikely to be shaken by bullets or iPhones. The bottom line is this. As far as I can tell, nobody gives a damn about bin Laden. Really. There's another reason we're in Afghanistan. Still in Afghanistan. It's not about hearts and minds. If it was, we would have won by now. People who were children when we invaded, if they've survived, are having children of their own. That's how long we've been there. In all that time, we've done what is virtually indistinguishable from nothing. If we're there to take something, minerals, oil, whatever, let's call a spade and admit it. Admit we conquered Afghanistan for the uranium or the bauxite or whatever. If we did it to have a permanent base in the region because Pakistan and India can't be trusted with nukes, fine, say it. All this running around crying about hearts and minds and bringing bin Laden to justice is foolish bullshit. State your real intentions and complete the job, or get the hell out. One thing though, if you leave Afghanistan in any condition other than completely pacified and willing ally, you have to leave it with the understanding that if you have to come back, the shit's on and everything dies.
Well, Christmas is over and I've got nothing to do for the next 364 days, but you need to get yourself over to the Firehouse Theater on Thursday at 8 p.m. for Hold the Salt, because they're funny. Ha, ha, ha. Funny.
A recent poll, and this is not some CHR Morning Zoo out of Minneapolis. This is the Associated Press, in association with Petside.com, shows that for 2010, 53% of pet owners plan to give their pets holiday gifts. Apparently, dogs make out better than cats, with 56% of dog owners reporting plans to give their pets gifts, while only 48% of cat owners shared that sentiment. This is apparently important research. Screw cancer. This is serious. Prince Frederick von Anhalt, whom you may know as Mr. Zsa Zsa Gabor No. 9, or you may not. In any event, old Freddy, no kid, and yet 25 years the junior of his wife, mistakenly glued his right eye shut, having mistaken Zsa Zsa's fingernail adhesive for eye drops. This is not the first eye glue incident in the Gabor household. According to Gabor's daughter, Francesca Hilton, half-great-aunt to gossip darling Paris Hilton, Zsa Zsa has, in the past, suffered an eye injury through accidentally using crazy glue to apply false eyelashes. It's like there's a subconscious thing going on there. And finally, and I do mean finally, we all saw this coming, didn't we? As happens from time to time, religious groups take it upon themselves to pronounce this day in the future, or that, as the end of the world. In case you haven't seen this for yourself, brace yourself, they're coming. Harold Camping, head of Family Radio Worldwide, an Oakland, California-based Christian ministry, has determined that the big day is May 21st of this year. Camping's followers are plastering their cars with signs, renting billboards and bus stop benches to get the word out. There are people organizing convoys of RVs displaying signage related to the impending rapture. Camping is 89. Personally, I'm just hoping he survives to June so he can know he was full of shit. Well, that's all for this edition of NewsUndies. Remember, NewsUndies is now a monthly show, and we'll be back on Friday, February 4th with fresh undies. If you see news that shouldn't be news, email your story tips to undies@newsundies.com. Thanks for watching. Until next time, I'm Paul Torville. After that, I'll be polishing my rocket for a trip to Mars. Oh, you're disgusting! I'm so disappointed in you.